joy and success. Every day is a chance for happiness. Yes, we can live a beautiful, crazy plan. Every day is a celebration. Welcome to the Great Song Adventure. I'm going to hand it over to Paul because he was there and did this interview with the great Bob Dylan.
And he is great, as far as songwriters go. It doesn't get much greater, though we've had so many great ones. Carole King, pretty great, so we like to get the greatest. But like your mom was saying, it's all about the doing. If you're writing a great song, that's great in itself. You don't have to be Bob Dylan, but he is Bob Dylan, so that was great. But before we get to him, speaking of your mom, there are just a couple things about that I wanted to mention. One was that you guys mentioned Eve of Destruction. I believe your mom said Barry McGuire, who sang it and made it a hit.
Right.
Lou Adler produced. But our good friend P.F. Sloan wrote it. And we'll bring an archival of my archival interview with Phil at some point.
The late and great Phil.
Yeah, who's friends to both of us and a wonderful guy. Also a secret agent man and a great songwriter. His very last album was all about Beethoven. It was an entire cycle about Beethoven, which was pure genius. But, not everyone wants genius right now, but a great one. Also, I thought it was interesting. Your mom was talking about, complex chords, and you talked about beautiful. And to me, beautiful, I could actually play that one on guitar. To me, that's not one that's really complex chordally, but some of them are more that way, where on the piano, every chord has an alternate bass note. So to a guitarist, that seems really complex. But I could see how to your mom, that's like really simple stuff. So to her, she was saying that those aren't that simple. But beautiful almost is like, something like a normal musician can kind of play.
I thought it was almost Gershwin-esque in some ways.
Yeah, and it is. And a lot of her songs are.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it. When she did that and played, see that chord, you could have just done the melody without that chord, but he does that. And I'm talking about Richard Rodgers, that's where songwriters live. It was so great. It's one thing to hear someone say that, but then to play it, it's like, oh, that's what they mean.
Her love of chords.
Yeah, and that's how we all learned, she was playing Richard Rodgers. I was playing Carole King and James Taylor and Paul Simon, and Beatles. But that's how songwriters learn, and I love that she did that for us. The part that everyone's been talking about to me was about that she emphasized the doing, and I think that is the ultimate message. You have to enjoy what you're doing as a songwriter, and that joy comes through in the songs. And, Dylan loved writing songs. I think that comes through in his songs, why he was so playful, why he was always trying different things. But like your mom, he had so much reverence for the craft, He gets so much attention for kind of exploding songs, but he didn't destroy songs. He still used choruses and rhymes, and in fact, his craft is a lot more intense than people realize. His rhyme schemes are almost always like A, B, where every rhyme, every line rhymes. And his craft is really quite, elegant and advanced. But his lyrics and his stuff was so, revolutionary that people sometimes miss out on that he really respects the song craft. He didn't reinvent songs.
There's so many jewels that he says in this interview that you did with him. What I noticed is he starts songs with questions and conversations. He says, well, really a good thing to do is have a conversation, but you have to have something big to say in that conversation.
Yeah, well, I got that from him too. I like Positively 4-3. Like, starts, you've got a lot of nerve to say you are my friend. Who starts a song like that? It's angry, but it's direct and it's human. And as we know, when you use conversational language like that in songs, it communicates. But then he combined that with, amazing poetry and just went places and songs no one had gone before lyrically. And I love his music. It's not advanced like a Beatles, chromatic, or your mom, but it's visceral. And, he responded to that too. When Leonard Cohen died, he goes, people only talk about Leonard's words because he was such a genius, but no one would sing Hallelujah if it wasn't a great melody. And he goes, people have cut jazz versions of my songs without the lyrics. So, I know he's sensitive to people that say that, because the words are so powerful that sometimes I think they overshadow the music. But like a Rolling Stone, I can't hear a better music than that. And so many of those I just adore.
But didn't he say something about that you don't need lyrics? Like, why do songs have to have lyrics?
Well, he said a lot of things in the interview that, like a lot of his songs, you can take them many ways. And he said at one point, the world doesn't need any more songs. And I said, is he joking? And he goes, yeah, if no one wrote another song, we got enough. And when that came out, that got quoted widely, that Bob Dylan, number one, gave an interview to this little songwriting magazine, and he said the world doesn't need any songs. But they missed the next line, which he then said, unless someone comes along with a pure heart and has something to say. Okay, that changes it. Like a good songwriter, you got to read the whole verse to get it. And,
Yeah.
and, there are people that have come along with pure hearts, and, we do need new songs. And when I interviewed Tom Petty, he mentioned that. He said, Dylan said that, I think he's joking. I mean, the world does need new songs. But he said a lot of things like that are kind of provocative. And other things, like his songs, I didn't quite understand when they came out of him. But like his songs, you read them, oh, I think I know what he's saying. But I remember when I asked him about the evolution of songwriting, because to me, living, growing up when I did in America, he changed the arc of songwriting. I mean, John Lennon said he never thought he could write poetry in a song until he heard Dylan, and then he wrote Help, and that it was an authentic cry for help. That changed a lot of things, and a lot of people felt that. And Dylan said, someone else would have done it. And I said, well, do you think songs will continue to evolve? And he said, I think the evolution of songwriting is like a snake with its tail in its mouth. I didn't even realize, but that's an ancient symbol, of infinity, like a lot of things he said, but also very funny too. So when he's talking about songs, he's kind of putting down songs. Like this is a song too, and he had a little ceramic flute there, and he picked it up. He goes, see, that's a song too.
Yeah.
But I think he kind of needs to do that because, like your mom, he is a human in the world, and people don't treat him like a human. Especially when he was younger, they come to him like he was Buddha and wanting answers, and it was too much for him because he was a human. I mean, a remarkable body of work. So that was my main question, like, how'd you do it? How'd you get so many? But I never knew, like, where do you start? What's the first question for Bob Dylan? And I heard Arlo Guthrie say, songwriting is like fishing in a stream, but I don't think anyone downstream from Dylan ever caught anything. So I started with that, and he just started laughing. He thought that was funny. But then I followed up, and I don't think he expected this. I said, well, so how'd you catch so many? And at that point, he looked at me like, oh, this guy's going to follow me where I go. And I could see he got this playful look. And he goes, it's the bait. And I go, okay, Bob, what kind of bait did you use? And then he took a pause. And then, and we just went on from there. But I could tell he really appreciated that, a lot of people who interviewed him in the past would ask him questions and not understand what the hell his answer was and go to the next question. But if you don't understand, what does that mean, Bob? And it just led to great places. And I never thought he would do this, but like so many songwriters, I have so many lines from his songs that I carry around. And I said, would you mind if I just name some lines, just by themselves? And he goes, yeah, you can name anything you want, man. I love that he said that. That was a great moment. And then I named a line from Absolutely Sweet Marie from Blonde on Blonde, a very old album, I think 1966, about standing there in the ruins of your balcony looking at the yellow railroad. And he goes, you see, that was real. And I thought it was really interesting. He goes, I didn't contrive these images. I saw that. And then I went on to other songs, and he kept coming back to the Yellow Railroad. And it just showed me these things have real meaning in his life. They weren't random. They all were there for a reason. He was a true artist. And he was more excited to talk about the Yellow Railroad than, I brought up like I and I from Infidels, which I think is a great song. He goes, yeah, what song is that again? Like some of them he wasn't even sure of.
You also brought up One More Cup of Coffee, and you said, go into the valley below. And you said, well, what valley? Was it the San Fernando Valley? Which valley was it?
He said, well, at first he goes, I think I wrote that for a coffee commercial. He was making a joke. But then he said, no, he was at a gypsy festival in France. It wasn't about the valley, but who knows what informs, what comes out of your mind.
Yeah.
But he also would go anywhere. I asked him about certain keys. As songwriters, we write in keys and we kind of live in those keys. And so many of his songs in A minor, I just find are classic A minor songs. So I named one, I think One More Cup of Coffee. He goes, you think so? Maybe you should try it in B minor. And I go, why? And he goes, it could be a hit for you.
Yeah, he said something about bringing out something deeper.
Right. I love that. And, that he thinks of all those aspects. And we talked about rhyming, and he said, yeah, rhyming could be fun. Sometimes he would, follow the rhyme. So I was just so thrilled that he was willing to do it and went to so many places with me. He was surprisingly critical of a lot of his songs. One thing he said to me was so surprising, because he's famous for these epic songs, 7, 8, 9 verses, like old folk songs. He goes like, a lot of them, though, are just too much and not enough. Mm. And that really shows a lot about him, that he recognized, like, that's too much, and it's still not enough. You have, like, 10 verses, and you're still not getting there. And it showed me he thinks of every aspect, and he doesn't necessarily judge himself that easily. He said, yeah, I'm good, but anyone could do it. I pretty much hung my whole career on a Southern twang. Because who's great? Randy Newman. Brian Wilson, those guys know music. And that surprised me. And Randy was surprised too, and thrilled that he heard that, was kind of bewildered by it. But there's a moment on here that there's a few moments that aren't in the print interview, but one of my favorite, he brings up the song People from Funny Girl that Barbra Streisand sang, and he sang a little bit of it. You know, people who need people are the luckiest people. And then he questioned it. He goes, you think people who need people are really the luckiest people in the world? And to me, that said so much about who he is, because he thinks no matter what, the equations in a song should add up. And when you think about it, that doesn't really make sense. You're hanging the whole song on an equation that doesn't really work. That he would even, applied it to that song, I thought was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell me about the archive of this.
This happened in 1992. I'd been requesting an interview from Dylan since I started my job 4 years earlier. One day I come to my office and there's a note from Elliot Mintz. Mr. Dylan likes your magazine. We'll be in touch. Thought it was a joke, of course. And finally, Elliot calls me and said, we're going to do an interview with you. It's going to be in the middle of the week at a hotel in the middle of town. Come alone. It's so trippy. It was like meeting Batman or something. It turned out I was at the Beverly Hills Hotel in a bungalow. It was not where I expected to do it. And thanks to Elliot, I got to do it. It was 1992.
That's fantastic. So this was recorded for print originally. It wasn't meant to be an audio recording.
It was. And all these were from the archives. I was the lucky editor of SongTalk, which was the journal of the National Academy of Songwriters. Never really thought Bob Dylan would do an interview with us. We were in a big magazine, but we got serious interviews. And I asked him one point, why are you doing this? And he goes, yeah, I noticed Paul Simon talked a lot to you. He was paying attention to that. And I loved that. So I was thrilled he did it. And needless to say, once Bob Dylan did an interview with us, that put us on the map because he's a pretty important songwriter.
It's so great that we get to share this with our listeners now. So here we go. This is part one of Bob Dylan.
I just saw Arlo Guthrie recently. He was saying how songwriting is like fishing in a stream. You put your line in and hope you get something. And he said, but I think anyone upstream from Bob Dylan never caught anything. So my question is, you got any idea how you've been able to catch so many? Is it just a lot of work, or is it a tremendous gift?
It's probably the bait.
The bait? Yeah. What kind of bait do you use?
Bait. Well, you got to use some bait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, you sit around and expect them to come to you, songs. Sometimes the forcing it is using bait. Yeah.
And that can work for you?
Well, no, throw yourself into a situation which would demand a response. People who write about stuff which hasn't really happened to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had said at one point how you don't write anything that hasn't been proven to you. You don't write about fantasies. You write about dreams or things that are true. Do you feel that?
That's not really our dreams. They're more of a responsive nature. Waking up from a dream, is when you write a dream, it's something you try to recollect. Mm-hmm. You're never quite sure if you're getting it right or not.
Mm-hmm. You said it's responsive. Does that mean that sometimes songs come better when your life is in turmoil?
Well, songs, to me, our songs are when you need them, they appear. Your life doesn't have to be in turmoil to write a song like that, but you need to be outside of it. You need to be outside of it, and that's why a lot of people, maybe myself included, write songs when where either one form or another of society has sort of rejected you, so you can truly write about it from the outside. Someone who's never been out there but only can't imagine it. It hasn't experiences in life.
So you mean you have to be outside of life itself to write about?
No, outside of the situation you find yourself in. That might not work for somebody like Stephen Sondheim, that type of stuff, which is more or less orchestrated music written, which is to call a Stephen song a song, and then which is so. There are different types of songs, and they're all called songs, you know. So, but there are different types of songs. Like there's different types of people, you know. Some there's an infinite amount of different kinds, all derived from a different wakes. Ballad verse to people with classical training, and with classical training, of course, then you can just apply lyrics to classical training and get things going on, you know, in positions where they've never been in before, or else to modern 20th century ear. Modern 20th century ear is the first year to hear these kind of Broadway kind of songs. It wasn't like this are musical songs. These are done by people who know music first and then lyrics.
Huh.
Yeah.
Did you know lyrics first before music? Is that what you're saying?
Well, to me, Hank Williams is still the best songwriter.
Okay.
Yeah.
More than Woody?
That's a good question. Hank Williams never wrote This Land Is Your Land, you know, but it's not that shocking to me to think of Hank Williams singing Pastures of Plenty, or Woody Guthrie singing Cheating Heart. Yeah. So, in a lot of ways, those two writers are very similar as writers, but you mustn't forget that both of these people were performers too. And that's another thing that separates a lot of just the person who writes a song. Are people who don't perform, but so locked into other people who do that they can just, you know, they sort of can feel that other person would like to sing in a song and be able to write those lyrics, which is a different thing from a performer who needs a song to play on the stage year after year.
Yeah. And you always wrote your songs for yourself to sing.
My songs are written with me in mind. In those situations, someone might say, do you have a song laying around? And the best songs, to me, my best songs, are songs which were written very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very quickly. In just about as much time as it takes to write it down is about as long as it takes to write it. Other than that, there have been a lot of ones that just haven't made it. They haven't survived. They could if they need to be dragged out, you know, and looked at again maybe.
Yeah. You said what the saddest thing about songwriting is that trying to connect with something that you started, and how hard it is to reconnect it.
To me, it can't be done.
Yeah. So those ones are gone. They're lost.
To me, unless you have another writer around who might want to finish it, outside of working with the Traveling Wilburys, my shared experience writing a song with those songwriters is not that great. Of course, unless you find the right person to work with as a partner, unless you find that exact that, you know, you're awfully lucky if you do, but if you don't, it's really more trouble than it's worth trying to write something with somebody.
Yeah. So some of your collaborations, like with Jacques Levy, came out pretty great.
We both were pretty much lyricists.
Yeah.
Yeah, very panoramic type of songs because, you know, after one of my lines and one of his lines would just come out. That's the song, that's the kind of, writing with Jacques was like, it wasn't difficult. It was trying to just get it done. You know, it was just didn't stop. But lyrically. And of course, my melodies are very simple anyway, so they're very easy to remember.
So a song like Isis that you wrote together, did you just write that, or did you plot it out what might happen first, that story?
That was a story that meant something to him.
Right.
And it just seemed to take on a life of its own, you know, as another view of history. Which there are so many views that don't get told of history. Anyway, that was one.
So was that a story you had in mind before the song was written?
No, Jacques, he was just doing a play at the time. He had songs in this play that it was a play of all kinds of mishmash of things. Old Calcutta. And do you remember they're just songs all over the place?
Yeah.
And he wrote them.
Oh.
And with this ISIS thing, it was ISIS. You know, the name sort of rang a bell, but not in any kind of vigorous way. You know. So therefore, it was named that Tune Time. You know, it was the name was familiar. Most people would simply move it from somewhere, but it seemed like just about any way it wanted to go would have been okay, as long as it didn't get too close.
Supposed to what?
Supposed to be working.
Now, some people have this idea of your songs just flowing up, but that song, for example, is really well crafted. It's got that A-B rhyme structure, which is like something Byron would do, interlocking lines.
Oh, sure. Well,
I know the songwriter, that's tough to do that.
Well, if you've read a lot of free verse, you won't be too if you've been raised on free verse, William Carlos Williams, that kind of stuff, E. Cummings, those kind of people who have free verse, your ear is not going to be trained for things to sound that way. And of course, for me, it never, all my stuff is rhythmically orientated that way. Like a Byron line would be something as simple as, what is it you buy so dear with your pain and with your fear? Now, that's a Byron line. That could have been one of my lines. Sure. You know, up until a certain time, maybe in the 20s, that's the way poetry was. You know, it was that way. It was simple and easy to remember, and it all was in rhythm. It had a rhythm, whether the music was there or not.
Is that fun for you, rhyming and finding the rhymes? Is that a fun process?
Well, it can be, but it's a game.
Yeah.
It's more like it's mentally. It gives you a thrill.
Yeah.
It gives you a thrill to rhyme something that you might think, well, that's never been rhymed before. But then again, people are taking rhyming now. It doesn't have to be exactly anymore. It doesn't have to really be exactly, you know. Nobody's going to care if you rhyme represent with ferment. You know.
Right.
It's not going to, nobody's going to care.
Right. That was a result of a lot of people of your generation, that the craft elements of songwriting weren't as important. And in your writing, the craft was always there right along with the poetry and the energy.
My sense of rhyme used to be more involved in my songwriting than it is. You know, still staying in the unconscious frame of mind, you can put yourself out and say throw out two rhymes first, and then work it back to how you can get the rhymes first, and then work it back, and then see if you can make it make sense in another kind of way. It's kind of but yeah, you can still stay in the unconscious frame of mind to pull it off, which is the state of mind you have to be in anyway.
So you do that, you come up with a line and come up then kind of work backwards and come up.
Oh yeah, a lot of times that's the only way you're going to finish something.
Yeah, I mean, I figured you must do that, but
yeah, well, that's not uncommon.
We're talking about the unconscious. Do you think your greatest songs come from conscious guiding of them, or is it a more unconscious process, letting them write themselves in a sense?
You know, motivation is something you never know behind any song, really. Anybody's song, you never know what the motivation was. It's nice to be, be able to put yourself in an environment where you can completely accept all the unconscious stuff that comes to you from your inner workings of your mind, and block yourself off to where you can control it all and take it down. And Edgar Allan Poe must have done that. People who are dedicated, but they're most people get their information these days over a television set or some kind of a way that's hitting them on all their senses. It's not just a great novel anymore. What did you just write down here?
What's on TV? Because
the TV song?
No, it's when you said how people look things over television.
Right.
It made me just think about how just modern times in general are more crass, and your songs always, to me, they harken back to other times and other centuries a lot. There's so much imagery that's very mythical and biblical, and
what happened to my glass of coffee? Oh, you did? Oh, you really did? Yeah. It tasted better out of that glass for some reason.
I could put some fresh coffee.
No, fresh coffee, thank you.
Was that a natural thing that your songs are so mythical? I think of a song like Changing of the Guards, for example, which to me is so magical. And it kind of brings back memories that I'm not sure I really have, but it seems like that's very something that we've experienced, but not in this life.
Yeah, a song like that, there's no way of knowing after the fact unless somebody's there to take it down in chronological order what the motivation is behind it. But on one level, of course, it's no different than anything else of mine. It's same amount of metric verses, like a poem. The melodies in my mind are very simple. They're very simple. They're just based on music we've all heard growing up. That music which went beyond that, which back further with the ballads. To me, it's old. To me, it's old.
You mean old in terms of
people can't really. It's not really something that's with my minimum amount of talent, if you call it that, minimal amount. We're talking about to me, a musician. To me, somebody coming along now would definitely read what's out there if they're seriously concerned being an artist who's going to still be an artist at the age that when they get to be Picasso's age. You're better off learning some kind of music theory. You're just better off, if you want to write songs, rather than just take a hillbilly twang, and try to base it all on that. Even country music is more orchestrated than it used to be. You're better off having some kind of feel for music that you don't have to carry in your head, that you can write down. And to me, those are the people who are serious about this craft. People who go about it that way. Not people who just want to pour out their insides. They got to get a big idea out, and they want to tell the world about this. And sure, you can do it through song. You always could song. You can use a song for anything, But the world don't need any for songs. No, they got enough. They've got way too many. Matter of fact, if nobody ever wrote another song from this day on, the world ain't going to suffer for it. Nobody cares. There's enough songs for people to listen to if they want to listen to songs. For every man, woman, child on earth, they could be sent probably each of them 100 records and never be repeated. There's enough songs. Unless somebody's going to come along with a pure heart to have something to say, that's a different story. But as far as songs writing, any idiot can do it. If you see me doing it, any idiot can do it. It's just not that difficult a thing. Everybody writes a song, just like everybody's got their own great novel in it. To make, that's why, now for me, like a song, there are a lot of people like me. Like you just had interviews with Neil, John, Mellencamp, and of course most of my ilk, that came along, write their own songs and play them. It wouldn't matter if anybody ever made another record. They got enough songs. People don't care to hear me sing a new song. Rolling Stones went out there and did a whole tour. What did they do? Factory Girl? That's a little dated in it, but still they're doing it. Right? Well, why they're doing it and putting it in just as strong a spot as one of the new songs? Because you got a few songs and that's what you got. You don't need to write a million of them. To me, someone who writes really good songs is Randy Newman. There's a lot of people who write really good songs. As songs. Now, Randy may not go on stage and knock you out, and knock your socks off. Or he's not going to get people thrilled in the front row. He ain't going to do that. Right. But he's going to write a better song than most people who can do it. And he's got that to an art. Now, Randy knows music. But it doesn't get any better than Louisiana, or across Charleston Bay. It doesn't get any better than that. That's like classically heroic anthem theme. He did it, There's quite a few people, but there's not many people who ran these classes. Brian Wilson. Now, Brian can't write any lyrics, but he can write melodies like to beat the band. So when you say, three people could combine on one song and make it a great song. If one person would have written the same song, maybe you never would have heard it, been buried on some rap record.
But at the same time in my life, when your new songs came out, like when Infidels came out, the song I said new things to me that no other song had said, and it really meant a lot in my life. And it seems to me that as time goes on, the need for new songs that define that time in the world are do you feel that? Or that there's no need for new songs?
It's not a good idea. It's bad luck to look for guidance for life's guidance to popular entertainers. It's just bad luck. It's bad luck to do that. No one should do that. The popular entertainers are fine. You know, there's nothing the matter with that. But as long as you know where you stand and what ground you are, many of them just you know, they don't know what they're doing either.
Sure.
You know.
But your songs are more than pop entertainment.
Some people say so. They don't. Not to me.
No.
No. Pop entertainment means nothing. Nothing. You know, Madonna's good. But you know, Madonna's good. She's talented. She puts all kinds of stuff together. She's learned her thing. You know, and but it's the kind of thing which just takes years and years out of your life to be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to sacrifice a whole lot to do that. Yeah. Sacrifice. That's what it's. If you want to make it big, you got to sacrifice a whole lot. It's all the same. It's all the same.
Both Van Morrison and Jimmy Porter called you a poet. You often thought of as a poet, not just as an entertainer. Do you think of yourself in those terms?
Sometimes it's within me. It's within me to put myself up to be a poet. But it's a dedication. Poets don't drive cars. You know, like, poets. You know, they don't go picket the Better Housing Bureau. Poets don't even talk on the telephone. Poets don't even talk to you. Poets do a lot of listening. Mm-hmm. And usually they know why they're poets. You know, which, there are, what can you say? The world don't need any more poems. It's got Shakespeare. You know? Mm-hmm. There's enough of everything. Mm. Well, you name it, there's enough of it. Mm-hmm. You know. There was too much of it with electricity, maybe. Some people say that. Some people say the light bulb was going too far. You know? Mm-hmm. Both live on the land. They behave in a gentlemanly way. Mm-hmm. And live by their own gentlemanly code. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that your songs come...
And die broke. Or drown in lakes. Poets usually have very unhappy endings.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, look at Keats's life. Look at Jim Morrison, if you want to call him a poet. Look at him.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, you mentioned...
Although, you know, some people say that he really is in the Andes.
Yeah. Do you think so?
Well, it's never crossed my mind to think one way or another about it, but right. You do hear that talk.
Yeah, that's right.
Piggyback in the end. Riding a donkey.
You mentioned Shakespeare, and people seem to have a hard time believing Shakespeare could have written all of his work because there was so much of it. Do you have any hard time accepting that?
People have a hard time accepting anything that overwhelms them.
Yeah, right. You think they might think that about you in the future? They'll look back at your work and not believe one man could have produced as much? Because as a songwriter, I could see how they could come up.
They could look back and they could think nobody produced it. They could. It's not to anybody's best interest to think about how they're going to be received tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It hurts you.
Really?
Yeah.
But aren't there some songs of your own that you know that are going to be around?
Who's going to sing them? My songs really aren't meant to be covered.
Yeah.
No, not really.
Huh.
Can you think of? Well, they do get covered.
Yeah.
They do get covered, but it's covered. They're not intentionally created to be covered. But okay, they do.
I find that the singing, the more enjoyable the singing was. Like the song I Threw It All Away. I just love to sing.
Did you play them on the piano or the guitar? Acoustic guitar?
More than yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, I love like I Threw It All Away. I just love to
Did you play? Did you learn to play the guitar?
Oh yeah. I'm a songwriter. I play guitar and piano.
You play jazz and you play jazz on the guitar? Jazz stuff?
Well, I have some jazzy songs. I'm not a jazz player. I'm more folk rock.
Folk rock. Well, okay. But it never hurts to learn as many chords as you can.
Yeah, well,
all the time. I know those stuff. Sometimes it'll change the inflection of it into a whole song, just a straight chord or say, an augmented seventh chord. So,
do you have favorite keys to work in? I mean, do keys mean different things to you?
on the piano, my favorite keys are the black keys.
I noticed you wrote lots of songs in flat keys. It was surprising to see them.
And they sound better on the guitar, too. Sometimes when the song's been in a flat key, say B flat, if you bring it to the guitar, you might want to put it in A.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing you just said. It changes the reflection. Lately in my mind, it's been the songs have been. They sound different. They sound. When you take a black key song and put it on the guitar, which means you're playing it in A flat.
Yeah, right.
You know, not too many people like to play in those keys. To me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because my fingering is the same anyway. So there are songs that even without the piano, which is the dominant sound, if you're playing in the black keys, why else would you play in that key? Unless you could have that dominant piano sound. The songs that go into those keys right from the piano, they sound better. They sound deeper. Yeah, they sound deeper. Everything sounds deeper in these black keys. They're not guitar keys, though. Right. People who play guitar, guitar bands don't usually like playing those keys, which gives me an idea, actually. There's a couple of other songs which could sound better in the black keys.
Do keys have different colors for you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Sure.
Like some of you've written some great A minor songs. I think One More Cup of Coffee is one of my favorite songs to play in A minor.
Right. Yeah. But B minor might sound even better.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it might sound better because you're playing a lot of open chords down on the guitar. If you're playing in A minor, you're tempted just to play right on the bottom.
Right.
If you play in B minor, it'll force you to play higher, and the chords will just you're bound to hit some of them. You're bound someplace along the line because there's so many chords in that song, or it seems to be anyway. You're bound someplace along the line to come down to an open chord on the bottom from B. You might not know what that is, but it's B. What would it be? Wow.
F sharp minor would be that.
It could be E. You would hit E someplace along the line.
Yeah.
Someplace along the line because don't you play
I know.
try to B minor. Maybe it'd be a hit for you.
But when you're,
I did it the number one song, isn't it?
I guess it is. But when you're sitting down to write a song, do you pick a key and say this key seems right, or do you change keys when you're writing?
Yeah, maybe like in the middle of a thing. Yeah, there's ways you can get out of. You can get out of whatever you get into. You want to get out of it. It's bad enough getting into it, But the thing to do as soon as you get into it is realize you must get out of it. And unless you get out of it quickly and effortlessly, there's no point staying in it. it just drag you down. You could be spending years writing the same song, telling the same story, you know, doing the same thing. So once you involve yourself in it, once you accidentally have slipped into it, the thing is to get out. So your primary impulse is going to take you so far, but then you're going to think, well, you know, it's just one of these things where this is all going to come, you know, and then all of a sudden you start thinking, or when my mind starts thinking, what's happening now? Oh, there's a story here. Oh, my mind starts getting into it. That's trouble right away. That's usually big trouble. And as far as never seeing this thing again. And one of the things, there's a bunch of ways you get out of that. You can make yourself get out of it by changing a key. That's one way. Just take the whole thing, changing the key, so keeping the same melody, and see if that brings it in place. Now, more times than not, that will take you down the road. You know, maybe you don't want to be on a collision course, but that'll take you that place. And then if that fails, which that'll run out too, then you can always go back to where you were to start. It won't work twice. It'll work twice. You can go back to where you started. And because anything you do in A, it's got to be a different song than G.
Sure.
While you're writing it anyway. There's too many passing notes. There's too many wide passing notes in G, not to influence the writing of your song unless you're playing on bar chords.
I know what you mean. About getting out of it. I find that, like, for example, if I write a song on a piano and then take it to guitar, it'll help me.
Oh, yeah.
Do you do that? Switch it from guitar?
Not so much that way. Although stuff, when it's time to record something, for me, sometimes a song which has been written on a piano and just lyrics here in my hand, it'll be time to play it now on the guitar, so it'll come out differently. But not because of it won't influence it wouldn't have influenced the writing of the song. Changing keys influences the writing of the song. Changing keys on the same instrument. But for me, that works. Maybe for somebody else, the other thing works. Everything is different.
Sometimes I find I have to trick myself and say, this song won't be a keeper, but I'll finish it anyways, and then I'll keep it. Do you ever do that kind of thing?
Do you record for somebody?
No, I don't have a contract. I do have a band, but we don't have a contract.
Right. Keepers or not keepers, you keep songs if you think they're any good and if you don't. But being in your position, you can always give them to somebody else. If you know a lot of songwriters, if you know a lot of people who perform, if you've got songs that you're not going to do, and you just don't like them, show them to other people, if you want. Then again, it all goes back to motivation. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? That's what it is. It's confrontation with that goddess of the self.
Does it feel to you that
God of the self or goddess of the self? Somebody told me it was goddess of the self. Somebody told me that the goddess rules over the self. Gods don't concern themselves with such human matters. Only goddesses stoop so low. Or bend down so low.
You mentioned when you were writing Every Grain of Sand that you felt you were in an area where you knew no one had been before.
Yeah, in that area where Keats is. Yeah.
It seems with
or maybe one of the things like, that's a good poem set for music.
Beautiful melody.
It's a beautiful melody too. It's a folk derivative melody. It's nothing you can put your finger on, but it just comes. Those melodies are great. There ain't enough of them. really. But even a song like that, the simplicity of it can be deceiving. As far as, well, a song like that could have just maybe been written in great turmoil, although you would never sense that. Written, not delivered. Some songs are better, written in peace and quiet and delivered in turmoil. Right? Others are best written in turmoil and delivered in a peaceful, quiet way. It's a magical thing, popular song. Trying to bust it down into everyday numbers doesn't quite work. You can't put it in any kind of. It's not a puzzle. There are pieces that fit. It doesn't make a complete picture that's ever been seen. But as I say, thank God for songwriters.
It's just so great to hear that interview. I loved it so much. There's a lot of thinking going on between the questions and the answers. You can hear the wheels turning.
Yeah. It's one of those guys. It's like a Buddhist getting to talk to Buddha or something. I had 7 million. I could have asked questions forever to him and never ended. So that was the hardest part for me, that it had to end. But I'm so glad we got that.
This is just part 1 of our interview with Bob Dylan, but there is part 2. So if our listeners come back next week, you'll hear the rest of this interview. And he says some great things.
Yeah, the guy knows a lot about songwriting. So join us for part 2 next time on The Great Song Adventure.